Running a prison is probably a big deal, but if these convicts run the prison, then who acts as the warden? I'm your host Yusuf, and these are 10 prisons in the world run by prisoners. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, who run the world? Perps! Number 10, Kwang Central Prison. This prison in Nonthaburi Province, Bangkok, Thailand, was nicknamed the Bangkok Hilton by foreigners. Kwang is touted as a maximum security facility that deals with inmates on demise row and serious lifetime offenders. All the convicts inside are forced to wear leg irons for the first 3 months inside. Demise row inmates have them permanently welded on though. The facility provides 1 bowl of veggie soup and rice a day, with prisoners also allocated cooking facilities and being expected to buy ingredients from the prison canteen. Fresh fruit, insect repellent, and ketchup are luxury items. Kwang has 2 big problems. Overcrowding is the first one. The prison is not only too small for the number of inmates, but they also have nothing to do. Not a single form of mental stimulation, exercise, creativity, or rehabilitation. Not a book, not a puzzle, nothing. One Canadian inmate said this of the prison: "I see a lot of people who are losing their minds. I see men turn into zombies, literally tuning out and existing in a numb state. It is a struggle to stay sane here." Here's where the corruption begins. With nothing to do, the inmates naturally turn to something that alters the mind. In 2012, that came in the form of cash, adult media, crystal substances, and smuggled phones. The police found all of those items in a raid, uncovering the hidden market between inmates that secretly ruled the prison and kept every convict sane. Number 9, Rikers Island. New York's Rikers Island gained a reputation for violence in the 1990s, when stabbings, executions, and other attacks on fellow inmates and guards were common and unlikely to result in any punishment. Inmates have described the prison as rougher than the roughest streets of New York. The list of documented attacks and guard-related assault cover-ups in Rikers is huge. Corrupt guards have even used inmates as enforcers. In 2008, an inquiry was launched following rumors of an inmate fight club instigated by prison guards. In October that year, 18-year-old prisoner Christopher Robinson was beaten until his passing by teenage inmates while guards looked the other way. Subsequently, 3 guards and 3 inmates faced charges. In the end, 2 of the guards were charged and imprisoned. The other guard is awaiting sentence, and in total, 12 inmates were implicated in the scandal. In response to the violence, prison officials clamped down in 2009 by searching cells daily for homemade weapons, using SWAT teams to break up prison riots, and transforming Rikers into one of the strictest prisons in the country. That year, annual stabbings fell from 1,000 to around 70. Still, graphic images of inmate injuries released in 2012 suggest that violence remains a problem in Rikers. While the correctional department insists the improvements are real and lasting, insiders suggest that violence is once again escalating in one of America's most notorious prisons. Number 8, Petak Island Prison. This one is really just strictly scary, but stick around. Remote Russian prison OE-256-5, commonly known as Petak, is specially designed to hold the country's most dangerous prisoners. Like Alcatraz, Petak is isolated by water, and the White Lake area that surrounds the prison is said to be one of the most beautiful parts of Russia, a stark contrast to the grim reality of life inside. Yet, as dangerous as the prisoners are, they don't have to fear much violence from one another, as they barely meet their fellow inmates. Prisoners in Petak are restricted to their cells, which they share with one cellmate for up to 22 hours and 30 minutes a day. They spend the remaining time in a cage, where they have been said to pace like predatory animals. And in such states of isolation, prisoners must contend with some of the harshest conditions of any prison in the world. There are no lavatories, no proper washing facilities, and you spend your whole life in a cell, said 39-year-old inmate Valerie in a 2004 interview with the Daily Telegraph. "When I came here, I told my wife to get a divorce. She cried a little, and we've never seen each other since." You can't even imagine the psychological effect Petak must have on its prisoners. Caged up all day and surrounded by freezing cold water and snow, this place destroys people. The first 9 months or so they spend adapting. After 3 or 4 years, their personalities begin to deteriorate, says a prison psychologist. There's no way anyone can spend 25 years in a place like this without being psychologically destroyed. Number 7, Puraquequara Prison. Inmates at a prison in Manaus, a Brazilian city deep in the Amazon, have taken 7 prison guards hostage. The local prison authorities told Reuters that underlining the endemic violence that has plagued the region's jails in recent years, the reason for the rebellion at the Puraquequara Penitentiary was not immediately clear, but local television stations cited a video allegedly recorded by an unidentified inmate who complained of sweltering heat and a lack of electricity in the prison. In a statement, the prison authority is the state of Amazonas, where Manaus is located, said the prisoners were demanding the presence of the press and human rights groups. They had no information on possible passings. In January 2017, almost 150 prisoners were ended as organized crime groups battled each other in several prisons in north and northeastern Brazil. In one particularly violent incident in Manaus, 57 inmates were removed from the world, some of whom were decapitated and thrown over prison walls. Number 6. Desembargador, Raimundo, Vidal, Pessoa Penitentiary. A new prison uprising in Brazil early on Sunday, January 1st, 2017, left 4 people executed, adding to the chaos in Brazil's penitentiary system that has left almost 100 inmates executed in the week of New Year 2017 in a gang conflict. The violence took place at the Desembargador Raimundo Vidal Pessoa jail in the center of the jungle city of Manaus, according to an emailed statement from the government penitentiary agency in Amazonas state, where the facility is located. 3 of the inmates were beheaded, while 1 was strangled, according to the statement. It did not give a motive for the removals, and it was not yet known if gangs were involved. In that week, 64 inmates have been ended, in prisons in or near Manaus. A prison uprising in the neighboring state of Roraima left at least 33 people without their lives. The gangs in this prison can do whatever they want to whoever they want, whenever they want. It doesn't look like the guards even tried to stop these guys from doing their illegal business within the prison walls. Number 5. Gangland. Jeffrey Wileman clutched his gut, throbbing in pain as he lay on his bed inside the South Mississippi Correctional Institution in April. But there was no way for him to cry out, not unless he wanted another beating. Hours earlier, inmates had slugged the 54-year-old and declared he needed to follow the rules their gang had set for prison life. He later wrote in a handwritten pleading filed in Itawamba County Circuit Court. After the beating, they escorted him to a gang leader who warned him he couldn't run or hide because the gang had members everywhere, Wileman wrote. In an interview with the Mississippi Center for Investigative Reporting, Wileman, who is serving time for possessing a firearm as a felon and possession of a controlled substance in a correctional facility, said he knew the gang was vicious and that it controlled many aspects of prison life. A few nights earlier, gang members had beaten and burned another inmate and just left him there. On the night of May 29th, we listened as Eddie screamed for help as he was being beaten beyond return, said one inmate, who spoke on the condition of anonymity because he feared retaliation. We had beat on the cell doors for hours, trying to summon help. All the officer in the tower would do is yell over the PA speaker for us to shut the hell up. No help ever came, the inmate said. Nobody counted or done a single security check that night. It's a shame these guys are so unempathetic. These prisoners are running rampant. Numero 4. San Pedro Prison. San Pedro Prison, or El Pinal de San Pedro, St. Peter's Prison, is the largest prison in La Paz, Bolivia, and is renowned for being a society within itself. Significantly different from most correctional facilities, inmates at San Pedro have jobs inside the community, buy or rent their accommodation, and often live with their families. The sale of powdery substances to visiting tourists gives those inside a significant income and an unusual amount of freedom within the prison walls. Elected leaders enforce the laws of the community, commonly through stabbing. The prison is home to nearly 3,000 inmates, not including the women that live inside the walls with their convicted husbands, with additional guests staying in the prison hotel. The book Marching Powder, written by Rusty Young and published in 2003, year I was born, describes the experiences of the British inmate Thomas McFadden, who became known for offering prison tours to tourists. Another book, El Choco, by Marcus Luttman, was published in 2007 and tells a story about Jonas Andersson, a Swedish inmate who offered prison tours to tourists from Posta, the richest area of San Pedro. The prison was originally designed to hold 600 inmates and now holds nearly 3,000 inmates. Inmates must purchase their own cells from other inmates because cells are not assigned by or run by any uniformed prison officials. The names of the housing sections are Posta, Pinos, Alamos, San Martin, Prefectura, Palmar, Guanay, and Cancha. Of those, Posta, Pinos, and Alamos are considered the higher-end communities and act similar to gated communities. The wealthiest area, La Posta, provides inmates with private bathrooms, a kitchen, and cable television. Such cells are sold for around 1,500 to 1,800 bolivianos. Wealthier inmates can buy luxury cells that may include 3 floors and a hot tub. One inmate paid for a second floor extension to be built on his cell, giving him views across the city. However, most of those inside the prison live in cramped conditions, with it being common for single-room cells to accommodate 5 people. Number 3, Carandiru Penitentiary. Carandiru Penitentiary, officially Sao Paulo's House of Detention, was a prison located in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The prison was designed and built by Samuel das Neves in 1920, when it was considered a model prison to meet the new demands of the 1890 Criminal Code. It was operational from 1956 to 2002, and at its peak was South America's largest penitentiary, housing over 8,000 inmates. In 1992, it was the site of the Carandiru massacre. It was demolished in 2002. Drauzio Varela, a noted Brazilian physician, volunteered as an unpaid physician in Carandiru from 1989 to 2001, in particular to address its AIDS epidemic. He wrote a book, Estação Carandiru, which in English means Carandiru Station, describing his own experiences there and the dreadful conditions of the inmates. The book was later made into a movie, and both were highly regarded by critics and the public. The prison was demolished on December 8, 2002. One block was left intact to be used as a museum, now open to the public and accessible via Carandiru Metro Station. Today, the Parque de Juventude complex is located on the site of the former penitentiary. Personally, I think just one brick as a museum is a bit boring, if not artistic. Number 2, Canto Grande Prison. Canto Grande Prison, which is known as the Shining Path Prison in Peru, is unique as it is completely run by the prisoners spending their life there. There were guards once, but the Shining Path took over and now runs their own rules. The inmates ran Canto Grande Prison, staging plays with proletariat heroes, decorating the walls with portraits of Mao, even making explosives in the craft shop and building defense barriers. On May 6th, police finally challenged the Shining Path inmates in a 5-day battle that left dozens passed away at the facility in the outskirts of the capital. The Canto Grande episode illustrates how a highly disciplined, fanatical rebel organization has taken advantage of Peru's corruption and inefficiency and challenged the government. It also underlined President Alberto Fujimori's determination to crush the rebels as part of his military-backed crackdown that began April 5th of that year. Many of the Maoist group's top players were held in the maximum security prison. Poorly paid guards not only lacked the motivation to confront the prisoners, they also are believed to have sold weapons to them. Internal security documents from the penal system's files made available to the Associated Press describe several incidents in which police delivered substances and weapons. Several inmates were wounded or ended in shootouts before the crackdown. The police have brought in firearms, short machine guns, and substances, reads a typical entry. Other entries record, matter-of-factly, prisoner casualties. Number 1. We have Cellular Jail, also known as Kalapani in India. This prison is notorious for terrible conditions for the inmates. Reportedly, prisoners could face torture, medical tests, forced labor, and for many, execution. The inmates have tried to go on hunger strikes to protest the terrible conditions, however the guards began force-feeding them anyways. The prison is located in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and being sent here is the equivalent to a living execution. If a prisoner were to complain, they'd be subject to extreme torture methods, one of them being that they'd be forced to wear coarse clothing that was rough on their skin and scratch their skin for 3 months. Many escapes were attempted, but none were successful. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time. On Crime Time.